here, but they can go or they can stay or go. But it's really it's their choice today. Yep, it's their choice. So you guys, we're in Proverbs 5. If you want to open up to Proverbs 5. What? Oh yeah. You guys, we're going to take an offering, and we'll just begin passing that around in the midst of our happy children.
They're happy because there's pillows.
I know. They're like, can we stay here forever? Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Sorry, Josh.
That's what it's for.
It's the second. Yeah, that one.
There we go. Okay. So, so Proverbs 5. We're skipping Proverbs 4 simply because it was a lot like what we've already read, and so we decided to go ahead with Proverbs 5. And
I think it's just because you like the content.
oh yeah, I was like, thanks a lot, Jim. I always blame Jim for the content. Don't ask me why. So today's proverb. Are the kids gone? Some they are. Oh, good, because it's very adult content. I was going to have to speak in euphemistic terms. So many kids here today that they aren't here, but it's probably time for some of them to hear this kind of stuff. So this is a real sensitive proverb. I think that all of us, this is going to talk about adultery and being faithful to the marriage, and I think all of us have been affected by adultery in some way or another, whether it's, we've been involved ourselves, or we know people, or moms and dads, and whoever. I mean, none of us are, immune to this subject, and there's a larger subject at hand as well, and and we'll kind of talk about this broader focus of, it's really the same thing that all Proverbs is about, walking in a path that's, will take you away from God, and walking in a path that gets you back on the path to God. It's wisdom versus folly. So that's kind of the bigger idea, and today the author is focusing on, the dad is talking to his son about marriage. So we're going to look at that here. And I want to start, though, with a story. Some of you guys know this, but kind of a reading, kind of part story, part reading. But 700 years before Jesus was born, you guys might remember Homer. He was writing his famous novel. That's pretty amazing. The Odyssey was written in 8 BC. And he wrote the story about Odysseus. Odysseus was the hero in the novel. Did anyone actually read? Has anyone ever read this? You have? I never have, and I'm thinking I never want to, because, I don't know. But anyway, I've read parts of it, apparently, because I knew this story. But you guys might remember that Odysseus is a sailor, and he encounters the famous, what they're called sirens. All right, a siren is a beautiful, seductive female creature. A lot of us think they're mermaids, but I think originally they were birds, part birds, part female. And a lot of times you think of a siren as a mermaid type figure, but they're seductive creatures whose irresistible song lured countless sailors to shipwreck and death on a rocky island. Odysseus knew he had to pass these sirens to be reunited with his homeland. So he took action to protect the lives of his sailors and himself. So he commanded all of his sailors to plug their ears with beeswax when they would pass this island, and they would not be able to hear the siren's alluring song, because whoever heard it would be dashed to the rocks. But Odysseus himself would not block his ears. He was exceedingly curious about this forbidden temptation. So his plan was this. He told the crew, you block your ears with beeswax so you can't hear. And he gave them strict orders. Tie me to the mast. Do not untie me. No matter what I say, no matter what I do, don't untie me until we're past. So the ship drifted towards the feared chasm, and the sailors patiently waited. And without notice, the sailors recognized a sudden calm. They were coming within earshot of the island. Each man secured the beeswax to be sure no sound would reach his ears. And Odysseus alone heard. Come here, renowned Odysseus. Honor to the Achaean name, and listen to our voices. No one ever sailed past us without staying to hear the enchanting sweetness of our song, and he who listens will go on his way, not only charmed, but wiser. For we know all the ills that the gods laid upon the Argives and the Trojans before Troy. and we can tell you everything that's going to happen over the whole world. And this was, for him, for Odysseus, the enchanting song of temptation. The idea is that, each sailor would hear what was most tempting to him, most irresistible to him. The pull of the siren song was so strong that it caused many sailors to perish. And so this is Greek mythology. This is where this is coming from. But because Odysseus had devised a plan to resist temptation, he alone was saved. So today in our lesson of Proverbs 5, we're going to begin talking about temptation, discernment, wisdom, and foolishness. And we return to, again, we've been talking about Proverbs, the loving, wise father. Remember, the bottom line of the author, the bottom line is Solomon is writing about a father who is truly wise, right? So a father who's truly loving, a father who truly cares. So when we get his wisdom, we can know that it's truly wisdom. And the father points to God as the wisdom, from where his wisdom comes. He's not just saying, this is what I believe, but he is saying, listen to me, but it comes from God. Again, the proverb has a twofold message. The broader message is we need to intentionally keep ourselves, and with a real emphasis on intentionally, keep ourselves from pursuing things which, though seemingly life-giving at the beginning of the temptation, will in the end destroy us and those around us. We've talked about, and this is what Homer was writing about, this temptation that will destroy you. And when the story goes that when Odysseus passed the island, he screamed into his sailors, let me go, untie me. I mean, he would not have resisted his temptation. I don't know exactly all of what Homer was thinking when he wrote this, but to me, it makes me think about there are certain temptations we do not, perhaps we do not get past without a godly fellowship around us. Sometimes we call on our friends, and that's what we're here for. Talking to Marissa and Jim today about thinking about this week, what's the difference between a church and a club? Because I think we're really different. I think some ways we're the same, and it seems similar, right? But we're different. Our whole purpose here is to encourage each other into Christ-likeness. That's what we're here for. So thinking about this, all of us are tempted to sin, and all of us sin. Nobody is exempt from a severe temptation. Even Jesus went through the severe temptation. Even Jesus, if you guys, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he yearned for his friends to be there. So this is not strange or unusual, and you shouldn't ever feel ashamed if a severe temptation comes on you to call upon the people in your fellowship. And there's going to be certain people that each of us, we can even like each other a lot, but there's going to be certain people that you feel particularly close to, that you feel particularly, I can trust this person, and I can share this with this person. So I think that's one of the big messages of today. The more narrow context is a warning for the individual not to stray away from the marriage relationship, which is a covenantal relationship, to seek pleasure. Okay? So, and then I had this note. With young people in our audience, that I guess I can speak clearly now, as long as they're not hearing. And in fact, when you're reading your commentary and it says erotica in it, you're just like, shouldn't even be. That's just strange. So anyway, you'll see what I'm saying in a minute. We won't get too much into it, but I want you to know this stuff's in the Bible. Okay, so Proverbs 5, what I'd like to do is let's read straight through it, and then we'll pick it apart a little bit. And we may even have time to read through it again. Sometimes just the process of reading through things is really helpful. Let's see. Okay, so Proverbs 5. My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen well to my words of insight, that you may maintain discretion and your lips may preserve knowledge. For the lips of an adulteress drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as gall, sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. She gives no thought to the way of life. Her paths are crooked, but she knows it not. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Do not turn away from what I say. Keep to a path far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your best strength to others, and your years to one who is cruel. Lest strangers feast on your wealth, and your toil enrich another man's house. At the end of your life, You will groan when your flesh and body are spent. You will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. I would not obey my teachers or listen to my instructors. I have come to the brink of utter ruin in the midst of the whole assembly. Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the streets, your streams of water in public squares? Let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be captured by her love. Why be captivated, my son, by an adulteress? Why embrace the bosom of another man's wife? For a man's ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines all his paths. The evil deeds of a wicked man ensnare him. The cords of his sin hold him fast. He will die for lack of discipline, led astray by his own great folly. All the quotes I'm giving you today are from Bruce Waltke's commentary. And as we start back at the beginning, the typical way Proverbs start is the typical way this one starts. It's a call to listen. Okay, my son, be attentive. And I'm going to read, my version that I have here is actually ESV, and I read out of NIV, so my words are a little different on this version that I studied from. So that's why you're going to hear some different words. But my son, be attentive, incline your ear to understanding. And I really love this word. This ESV says that you may keep discretion. And I don't know if you guys think about that word, but that's a really good word. I'm going to try to think about more often. Discretion is, and I looked it up, discretion is the power to decide according to one's own, hopefully, good judgment. And the one thing we want for our children, and for us too, I want to have more discretion. I want my children to have discretion. As I speak with young people, it seems like discretion is in very short supply. And it also seems like our world, and I don't know, I think it's the whole Western culture, but maybe even more particularly in our state, I don't know. But there just seems to be, you're almost taught the opposite. Say whatever you think, whenever you want, however loud you want, and you go. And for a woman, for me, the message I feel like I have gotten my whole life is, I am woman, hear me roar. You go, girl, And sometimes that's kind of fun. But when you think about the message, we're not teaching discretion. I see it in my own kids. I see it in me. So it's something that I struggle with. But I think the power to decide according to your own good judgment, and instead of letting the culture, letting people around you decide what to do, is in short supply. Something that I think we could all work on. And it's also the power to resist being swayed by someone's bad judgment. And, we're talking about probably a harlot here, a prostitute, this woman coming on to this man. And so the father says, in this case, you will need exceedingly strong discernment. Because, as we're going to find out, her lips are going to drip with honey, right? Her speech, she's as smooth as oil. You can kind of sense what he's getting at. And he says, I want your lips to guard knowledge. And the idea here is that we need to internalize wisdom, and that's another reason we're here at church. We are trying so hard to help each other internalize wisdom. And that means we don't just think it, but we're actually changing. As we internalize more wisdom from the scripture, we're changing. As we talk to each other and have godly influence, we're changing how we act, changing the attitudes that we have. That's the idea. We're trying to internalize this. And in this case, he says, the father's saying to the son, as you internalize the wisdom and the discretion that you learn, nothing should pass from your lips that does not proceed from the wisdom of God. And that's really powerful for me because, and you're probably like me, I think it's human nature, but I can be pretty careful sometimes when I'm outside of my home talking to people, but when I get home, I'm the least careful because I'm the most comfortable and I trust Jim the most. But, when I think about this, does everything that passes my lips proceed from the wisdom of God? He gets it the worst. And that's the place that I should be the most careful, because he's the one who loves me. He's the one that, takes care, how we take care of each other. And I think we tend to sometimes be worse at home. And my feeling is for myself, and maybe for you too, is that really our good behavior should start in the home. We should be cherishing those people that we have there. So the wisdom should for the son, this wisdom that eternalizes, because you're going to see they're going to compare lips. Something's going to come out of her lips, and he's like, you need to be careful what comes out of your lips. All right? For the lips of a forbidden woman drip with honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. This is like the siren song, okay? She's singing her siren song. And again, this is honey is sweet, and it's oozing, and it's very seductive, and it's hard to resist for someone with no or very little discretion, okay? And then we have this oil. Oil is used for many applications in the ancient Near East, cooking, from anointing the body to healing. So it evokes another image of seduction. You can kind of see how this is very, I don't want to be lurid, but very seductive. In the end, now we're talking about the harlot and the prostitute. In the end, she is bitter as wormwood. So the idea here is she looks like honey, but she turns into wormwood. That's like you put something sweet in your mouth, and all of a sudden it turns into the nastiest thing you've ever had. And this is what we've talked about this a lot, raising kids, and even in our own lives. The thing that's scary to me about raising kids is the thing that can damage them the most is the thing that's maybe the most fun at the beginning, right? I mean, that's hard. That's hard to convince them. That thing that that thing that you might do or have done, and I didn't know about it, that was really, really fun, that's the path to destruction. And it's hard. It's hard for us to believe it because it's so fun at first. But this is what he's saying. There's a saying here that honey is sweet, but that bee has a sting. That's just a short little proverb. Honey is sweet, but that bee has a sting. That's a good one for me. I'm like, I'm not sure my kids would like it if I pull that out, but I could think of sometimes. So she turns into wormwood. Wormwood is the word gall. I believe this is the same. I have a little picture of it. It's a little grayish blue plant. It looks like a weed. I think this is the same thing they gave to Jesus when he was on the cross. They mixed the gall with the wine. It's supposed to have it's real bitter. It's supposed to have some kind of properties to it. But the point here is that you might think it's honey, but it's really wormwood. I know, maybe some of you, C.S. Lewis, maybe you've read Wormwood. That's where it comes from, that character Wormwood. So she is wormwood, and she is as sharp as a two-edged sword. And what do you guys, in our lingo, in our vernacular, when I say sharp as a double-edged sword, what's the expression mean in our vernacular? Does anyone know? Because I had to look it up. I wasn't quite sure.
Cuts both ways.
Okay, that's what this means. A lot of times people in our vernacular use it meaning it's a double-edged sword, meaning it has a good side and a bad side, so you got to be careful. That's not what it means here. Here it means, so when you say, if the author said here, she's as sharp as a sword, well, the sword can do some damage, but a double-edged sword does complete damage. I mean, this thing, right? No matter which way she goes, she's cutting you up. And so she's lethal is basically what it's saying. This word Hebrew, this word for sharp here, always refers to a sword. The sharp sword stands for the cruelty of her personality. And of course, when the son first meets her, she's not cruel. She's the honey dripping. But the sharp stands for the cruelty inside her personality, the part which allows her to devour people when she gets what she wants, and then she tosses them aside. And they said this is a cool word, the coup de grace. This is meaning her fatal final blow. She gets what she wants, and then she pulls out that sword, and you're done, right? With no ounce of compassion. One of the quotes I read here, which is really good, it says, in the profession of the unchaste woman, right? The forbidden woman, the harlot, the prostitute. In her profession, her survival is only possible if, in her relations with men, all the ingredients of a genuine human relationship are systematically excluded. So a person who does this with his son is the person who necessarily excludes every ounce of genuine human relationship. And that's why she can pull out that sword, no problem. Cut you up and you are done. When she has what she wants from you, she's had enough with you, you're done. Okay. Her feet go down to death. Her steps follow the path to Sheol, the grave. Again, this is just very dark imagery. This is the opposite of light, the opposite of good. Her feet go down to death. her path leads to her, and this is talking about her final destruction. We're talking about, again, in the end of all things. And again, this is the challenge of teaching people this stuff. It started at honey. We started at good, sweet honey. And at the end of all things, she'll be in Sheol. She'll be in the grave. She does not ponder the path of life. Her ways wander, and she does not know it. And the idea here is that our paths are straight precisely because they're God's paths for us. That's why they are straight. She has thrown away her moral compass, and she's wandering, and she doesn't have a home, and she doesn't have a place to go, and she doesn't even probably have real friends. I mean, she's wandering. She doesn't even know the futility of her life. You know, Steve Fromhold's big on saying, the worst person is a person who doesn't know that she doesn't know. That's how this woman is. She doesn't know that she doesn't know. She's just wandering, destroying people along the way, and her life is completely futile. The greatest gift God gives us is life, and she's ruined it. Okay, so that part was the. I think I forgot to tell you guys. We had a call to wisdom, and then we had the bad part of what would happen. Well, and here we have the folly of following the forbidden woman. It's like, and he says this. Now, he gives an additional injunction here to hear and obey. Sons, listen to me. He says it again. Do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way from her. Do not go near the door of her house. And the idea here is, and I've heard this a lot in the church culture that I've been in since I was a young wife when I first became a Christian. So in this huge church, and did lots of women's groups and stuff like that. So this is a message that I've heard my whole Christian life. Don't flirt with danger. And I think this is really good advice. Don't even go near her. Don't have any kind of companionship with her. Some of our therapists here can speak at the end or now or whenever, but a lot of affairs begin with somebody that we're friends with. And so one of the things I learned as a young wife is like if you're doing a church project together or something, and there's a guy there that you're wow, he's nice, I like him, wow, he's cool, it starts like that, and then you find yourself continuing to work on a project with this guy, and you're starting to be, I really like this guy. That is time to leave, period. You just leave, right? Because you do not need that. And you can tell yourself, well, I'm not going to go there. I love my husband. Well, sometimes you can love two people, and we don't want that either. Not in that way. So don't flirt with danger. Don't go near her. Don't have any companionship with her. This is the woman who's trying to lure you. And as soon as you realize that, you need to cut and run. Because none of us are exempt from this temptation. You guys know in 2 Timothy 2:22, Paul tells, and this is a young man that the father is talking about, although this could happen anytime in life, but he says, so flee your youthful passions, pursue righteousness, pursue faith, love, peace, along with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart. So flee these passions that lead down the wrong path, and go along the path with those who call on the Lord. So, let's see, let me read this again so it kind of makes sense. Do not, keep your way far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others, which can mean dignity. You give your honor to others and your years to the merciless. Okay? And it's interesting that he says, you give your honor, you give your years. He's placing the responsibility firmly on the son. You gave up your dignity. You gave your honor. This is, it's no one else to blame but you. You impoverished yourself. You victimized yourself. And these next passages are really quite sad. It says he hands his honor and his vigor for life. You just imagine, especially we're talking about this young man who has that vigor. Those of us who are getting older, we remember the vigor, right? These are the really important a time in your life when you're really productive and you're really strong. And it says he hands his honor and his vigor for life over to the one with the sword. How horrible, right? How horrible. And it says, lest Lest you give your honor to others and your years to the merciless, lest strangers take their fill of your strength, and your labors go to the house of a foreigner. So the best of this man's energies will go to someone else, and not for the building up of his own home. That's really tragic when you figure out the end is she's going to slice and dice him up. Your energies are going to go for people who don't really truly care for you. And your energies will go to people who have not stood by you, and they're going to receive gain from you, those who do not deserve it. And it's just interesting, your labors. This is really hard work. In fact, it's the same word that they use for the labor, a woman in labor. So these are your really hard labors, the things that, you don't get back as you get older, right? And at the end of your life, you groan when your flesh and body are consumed. So the inevitable end is anguish and groaning, though this will not appear even remotely possible when the honey is oozing, right? And one of the commentators says, and this is just a statement that we could live by all the time, we can never judge life only by its mere moments, right? And at a mere moment, this might seem the right way to go. At the mere moment, it makes me happy. At the mere moment, it gives me relief. At the mere moment, whatever we want to say. We must never judge life by its mere moments, but we must keep the end in view. And that's kind of what living a Christ-like life is about. And that's why we come together, because we know that there are times in each of our lives where we're tempted to walk away. Really tempted. I mean, I've been there. I'm sure you guys have been there at some point. I hope, there was times in my life I thought, I hope someone's praying for me because I can't. I'm about ready to walk away from all of this. Not Jim in my case, but like church, God, But we're all tempted there, right? We all need our friends at some point and people who walk with the Lord. And as Christians, I've been kind of reading Psalm 121 because it's very encouraging. And it starts with, Lord, I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? That's kind of the anthem of the Christian. Not how do I feel this very moment, but in however I'm feeling right now, whether I'm having extreme anxiety or depression, I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of the heavens and the earth. That's where we're at as Christians. And sometimes we come along each other and say, lift up your eyes. I mean, we have to be careful how we say it, right? We don't want to be trite. Just believe in God, everything will be fine. No, we don't do it like that. But lift your eyes up to the Lord. Lift your eyes up. Your help will come from the Lord. And then it says, the son says, so at the end of his life, he's groaning. His flesh and body are consumed. He's physically worn out. He's just beat up in every way. And you say, and he said, the son says, how I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. People came along the son, probably people that loved him, the sages, the elders, the people who taught him, his parents. People come alongside him. Don't do this. Turn from your way. Don't do this. Don't turn from your way. And he says, I despise reproof. And again, we have it here as the father saying, you said this. You are your own victim. And he makes a point that had the father not warned him, the father would have been to blame. But the father warned him, okay? But the son was intractable. He was stubborn. He was resistant to instruction. And whenever we feel that in my life, whenever I feel that, I know I'm in trouble. Whenever we're intractable, resistant, stubborn, resistant to instruction, that's a warning sign for all of us. Especially those who are closest to us, who speak truth. One of the hardest things I have to do is speak truth to people that I'm close to because as Christians we get a lot of the tags sometimes. Well, you're being judgmental, or you think you're all high and mighty. A lot of times when we speak truth to people, we get that tag. Hopefully we're doing it in love, with the right attitude, with the right tone of voice, at the right time. Timing's important in how we tell people. But hopefully we don't shy away, especially if someone's doing something that we know is going to be very, have fatal consequences to relationships. So anyway, yeah. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers or incline my ear to my instructors. These are not teachers at school. These are the sages, the people who were wise in the culture, people he knew were wise because he grew up with these people, one of the first things we'll notice, there's some warning signs, and like I said, our therapist here can tell us. So there's some warning signs. One of the big ones for me is when people walk away from the church. Like I've had couples going back to Houston, like super involved in church, and it's not always the case, but there's been a couple that I've known back in Houston. They all of a sudden they're really involved, and all of a sudden they're just not there at all. Like, you know, you can't even, you don't talk to them, they don't call you, whatever. And then in the 2 cases in Houston that this happened to me, they both ended up being in an affair. So sometimes that's a red flag, right? People cut out their Christian friends. And the first thing they'll say is, I'm cutting you out because you're judgmental, but I think the real reason is, I really do, is sometimes they know their Christian friends will call them on it. And they are the wise ones, but they don't want to listen. And so they cut out that side of their friendship. The Son says, I'm at the brink of utter ruin in the assembled congregation. And this is complete social ruin. The sin, which was once a secret, is no longer a secret, and the effects of his whole relational life are being realized. And he says, I'm at the brink of utter ruin in the assembled congregation. Okay. Now the Father is going to change tact, and he's going to say, here's the wisdom of staying within the marital relationship. Now, water is used for a lot of things because water quenches thirst. And in this case, you guys can imagine this is sexual thirst, and the water here is always referring to the woman, which is a little surprising because some of this sounds like it's referring to a man, but I'll get to that part in a minute. So this is talking to the man. Drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. So, yeah, obviously the Father is admonishing his Son to only quench his thirst, his sexual thirst, from his private cistern, his wife. And it says here, should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets? I always thought this was referring to the man. That's just me. But actually it's not, because we got to keep with the metaphor. The water is the woman. And the reason it's plural here, he's not saying, although this could happen, if you do this thing, your wife is going to go out and spread her water everywhere, right? Do you want this? And it's plural, like, do you want your women in the society doing this? I mean, if you go do this, do you want it then to be waters available for everyone everywhere? And the street is the purview of the harlot. The street is the purview of the prostitute. He's like, this is not a place for you and your wife when you're married. So the idea is your private spring is for you alone, and it's for your wife alone. Societally speaking, this is not something you share in public. Let them be for yourself alone, the waters here, okay, the springs. Let them be for yourself alone, and not for strangers with you. And again, he's stressing once more the radically private nature of this act. You alone, your married companion alone. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice in the wife of your youth. And I'll read the next part and I'll do. A lovely deer, a graceful doe, let her breasts fill you at all times with delight, and be intoxicated always in her love. And so the Father knows that for this man's thirst to be completely quenched, he's got to have a well of good, sweet, pure water. So he hopes for his Son that both quantitatively and qualitatively he will be satisfied. So it's something to think about as we get married, and we've gone through this for a long time. Something for us gals to think about, I guess. So the Father is like, I hope you're blessed by this. I hope you're blessed, because that will keep him on a path. That'll just provide an environment for him that won't be as tempting as some environments. Okay. And it says, why should you be intoxicated, my son, with the forbidden woman and embrace the bosom of an adulteress? Okay. He expresses a little bit of incredulity here, like with the blessing of conjugal bliss, hopefully that I hope that you have. Why would you go anywhere else? This doesn't make any sense to me. And then the final portion of this is the sober consequences of not being wise. For a man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord. He ponders all his paths. The Lord sees everyone in this scene. The Lord sees the foolish and the wise, and he knows our ways. The iniquities of the wicked ensnare him, and he is held fast in his cords of sin. So a man must have discernment, or he will be ensnared. The Lord allows and they have no problem here saying the Lord will allow the natural consequences of your sin. Even us believers, the Lord will allow the natural consequences of the sin. Judgment is inevitable in that case. He dies for lack of discipline, and because of his great folly, he is led astray. Okay? And this actually means, in this case, it refers to eternal death. The immoral are robbed of life, which is rooted in the true love and loyalty found in God and his people. That's what we believe as a church, that true life is rooted in love and loyalty to God and his people. And this, what the Son did, is not loving or loyal either one to God or the people. One commentary, because they're kind of saying this adulteress is she's like a walking death. I mean, she's dead. I mean, she's walking around doing her thing, but she's dead. So he does not listen. He does not obey. He throws away, because she threw away her moral compass. He decides to throw away his too. Okay, and then he is utterly lost. They're both utterly lost, and the siren's song did its work on him. All right. So a note before application here. The one thing I want to remind you guys is in the New Testament, Jesus interacted with the forbidden woman. He adulterous women, and he forgave them. We remember in John 8, this is the scene where they come up and want to stone this adulterous woman, and Jesus is writing in the sand. And he says something like, well, whoever of you has no sin, you can be the first to throw a stone at her and stone her, remember? And the oldest walk away first, presumably because they're the most wise and they know we've all sinned, and they all walk away. And no one condemns this adulterous woman. And Jesus says, then neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin. I've heard, well, I think from Jonathan's side of things, he hangs around people that some of them are kind of hippies. And, I've heard this before. Like, I've even heard, like, memes, and I've seen memes on, like, Jesus was the original hippie. And I'm like, yeah, no. Because, there was this part where Jesus said, I don't condemn you. And then they stopped there. And Jesus said, I don't condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin. That's the part where he's not the hippie. All right. And then in Luke 7, I think this is probably one of my all-time favorite stories in the Bible, where Jesus is having dinner with Simon the Pharisee, and the woman comes in and she's crying and she's wiping Jesus's hair. Her tears are falling on Jesus's feet, and she's wiping his feet off, cleaning his feet with her hair because she doesn't have anything else. And she takes out oil, and she's, again, oil is used for many things, cleaning and anointing his feet. And, that's where Simon's thinking to himself, well, he shouldn't be interacting with that woman at all. She's sinful. And, then Jesus says, you know what, when I walked in here, you didn't kiss me, you didn't greet me, you didn't wash my feet, you didn't give me the normal social courtesies, and this woman is loving me and really in a kind of a posture of repentance. And then he says to the woman, your faith has saved you, go in peace. So it's really important to remember that that this is not, the unforgivable sin, that there's always that chance to get back on the path of life. So with as regards of application, again, the broader message today would be, I guess, do I believe that there is a siren song for me? And what does it look like? My siren song is not yours. The things that would tempt me to go astray, and I'm not just talking sexually, but I'm talking anyway. Leave God, leave being kind or whatever. Kindness, gentleness, patience. What are the fruit of the Spirit? What tempts me to leave the fruit of the Spirit? What's my siren song? Do you guys know it? Because one of the best defenses is the guy, Homer or Odysseus says, tie me to the mast, right? So if I get close to one of mine, I got to tell somebody, tie me to the mast. I need help. This one is too much for me. What is your siren song? What measures do I have in place in order to secure my protection and the protection of my family? Some siren songs in my life are worse than others. So what are the most dangerous ones that you have? What are the ones that threaten your family and you? maybe the broader application, am I a person that the Father's saying, please have discretion. Please have discretion. Am I that person? Am I characterized as a person of discretion? Am I a person known for, these ones are painful for me, known for self-control regarding my tongue? Are you known for that? Or would people go, oh my gosh, she is like bubbling, like she's like Old Faithful with her, she has no discernment with her tongue. He has no discernment, no self-discipline with the tongue. Sometimes when I get home, I have no self-discipline with my tongue, right? Because I'm tired of having discipline with my tongue. You guys know how that feels? and then I'm going, okay. Sometimes I warn Jim, though. I go, I'm not mad at you, but here it comes. I got to vent. Sometimes I go. Jonathan's like that. I noticed his whole life he would be perfect at school, and when he got home, oh man, did I get it, right? And then I later remember, oh, he's just like me. How did that happen? So I didn't realize that for so long, but that's what was happening. And so I realized I do that, and it's painful when I read this stuff. It's really painful because I feel like when I do that at home, I'm not having discretion. I'm not having discernment. And what am I doing to my family, right? Am I known for a person with self-control over my tongue? Think of yourself at home first. My actions, my attitudes at home. Who is suffering because of my lack of control, my lack of self-control? Who is suffering starting at home? Who's suffering? And then move out from your circles. Start at home and move out. With regards to the more narrow message of today's lesson regarding our marriages, now I know not all of you are focused on the family fans. Some are, some aren't. But so you therapists can let me know if you agree with this. This is from Focus on the Family, but and I've got a religious take on this, and I've got a secular one at the end I'll read, which I think is really interesting. What are the following factors? You guys speak up if you think this is baloney. This is a list. Following factors that can lead to marital unfaithfulness. So it may be because we turn to, he calls it extramarital liaisons, to build up our self-image, our sexual self-esteem, to satisfy our longing for love, our longing for appreciation, and our longing for tenderness. Do you, therapists? I'm just asking you because you deal with a lot of these people. You see lots of patterns. Is that something that resonates with you guys?
I think it's sometimes that, but I actually think in our culture, people do it because they think everything should be exciting all the time.
Good.
And they get bored because it's not. We're very much into kind of thrill-seeking, risk-taking behaviors in our society.
Okay, good. Yeah, one of the ones that again, back in Houston, when I first started noticing this stuff, the big line that comes out, well, we shouldn't have been married in the first place anyway. You go, but you are married. But that's a big one. They kind of, it's easy to justify in their head because, well, we shouldn't have been married in the first place, right? But anyway, do you guys, anybody else have any comment on that?
I think that's a big lie of the church, honestly.
Which one?
There's one, where's the one?
Oh, exactly, the one person that, yes.
I think that's a huge lie, and I think the church, the church, capital C, around the globe, I think we sort of perpetuate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it's super hard for people to transition from celibacy into this, what marriage is meant to be. Mm-hmm. I think that's really challenging and can be confusing for people.
Our daughter, just kind of building on that, our daughter and son-in-law, when they were married, they chose many of their own vows. But one of the vows they made that I've never heard in another marriage ceremony was, I choose you above all the men I've ever met and ever will meet. I choose you. Mm-hmm. And then he said that to her as well. Because
that's
it is
nice.
a choice.
It's a choice, yes. That's interesting. Good.
I would say I've had a number of people that I've worked with where it's been, I don't know where the actual core of it was, but one of the things that really stuck out was the attraction was you get me in a way that my spouse doesn't get me. and it's usually a common experience. You know, it's like, it's either, we were in, you know, Afghanistan together, we were both under hostile fire, and you know what that feels like where my wife doesn't, right? We just share something that I can't have with her.
And that would be a powerful.
More recently, there's been times when there may be a first responder under a tremendous amount of stress, and it's like, well, you know, my wife just doesn't get this about me. She just doesn't. We can't connect. I don't want to tell her because I don't want to burden her. But that's part of the issue, right? So the only way the person can understand is for you to talk about the emotions that you felt when you were undergoing these things, and for the other person to treat it as a time of drawing closer emotionally and really experiencing it as best you can. And you're not going to know it completely, but so it's interesting because it from a lot of times what would happen is when the other person, not that it's okay, but the other person gets, I just don't want to take the time to learn this. This is like disturbing to me. This is like, I don't know how it's going to apply now. And there's like, so the what's right in front of you, life, to take care of stuff, like this is important to me, that's not. You know, I'm glad, you know, you have that part of your life.
Yeah.
This is our life, you know, and so there has to be mutuality where both people are seeking to understand each other's deeper parts.
Well, I remember when Jim and I were young, married, one thing we had to work through was he wanted to protect me. That was a natural, something in him, natural for him to not want to distress me, probably because I could get easily distressed, but, and, you know, and there would be things happening at work that eventually I'd hear about, like, way later, and I'd be like, well, like, one day I was a stay-at-home mom, and he comes home with a box, and I'm like, it had all his office stuff in it. I'm like, what's the box? He goes, I quit today, and I'm like, I mean, you know, we're a single income. I'm like, and I literally knew nothing. Like, I'm like, what do you mean? Wait, what? And then the story comes out about how long it had been that they had been pressuring him to do stuff that was unethical, you know, and I didn't know any of it. Well, then we had a little come to Jesus meeting, because I was like, what? You know, and I always told Jim, I'm not settling for an average marriage. This is going to be a good one. We're going to, and sometimes if I have to stay up till 3 a.m, we will, and we talk. But, and then we realized where we were passing ships was that he thought he was doing me a favor by hiding this stuff, and I felt offended that he didn't trust me. And neither of those were true, right? I mean, he wasn't doing it because he didn't trust me. He was trying to save me, and I'm like, I don't want saved. You need to, because I deeply wanted to help him. I deeply wanted, even if I told him, even if I'm distressed, I deeply want to be in this with you. And we worked through that, and we don't have that problem anymore, but I do remember that just being a natural passing of ships that we didn't intend or mean. And sometimes our well-laid plans can go awry, right? Just communication issues. So, yes.
I had my ex-wife and I, when we were going through marriage counseling with this lady at the church, she told us, like, you know, kind of like what you were saying or everybody's saying, is that, you know, like, there's things that, like, my wife, I don't think will ever get about me, right? But, like, I don't go confide with another woman about it. Right, she would, and that's what she would say. She's like, you know, if you're a guy, go confide with your guy friends, and if you're a woman, go, you know, confide with your woman friends. And but also in that aspect, like, you know, don't go to a guy that, you know, is like sex, drugs, and rock and roll type of a person, right? That's not
a godly counsel,
right, you know?
Someone on the path himself.
Yeah.
Another one is neglecting to talk openly with each other, which is kind of what we're talking about. Another one is resisting conflict resolution. I knew a couple that they never fought, and then they got divorced, and then they fought a lot. But you know, stuffing everything doesn't work either. And we're all a little different. I realize about this. I totally realize this because with Jim, I was like, this, you know me. I'm gonna go. Oh no, you're gonna get me. I will talk you into the ground. You're going to get me. So that's why. That's why he's such a good counselor. I'm like, oh, no, you are going to understand this. Now, that doesn't work for everybody. I get that.
There's
Jim's
two
a very...
metaphors, right? The Old Faithful metaphor and the dripping faucet.
I can do both really well. So I will drip until you know, anyway. So I do realize and Jim's a very patient man, so, but you know, we've got to find a way to talk to each other. And when our spouse talks to us, if we react poorly, which is part of the reason Jim didn't talk to me sometimes, because I'd be like, blah, or whatever. I mean, of course they're not going to talk to you. If your spouse gives you loving criticism, hopefully, and you react, you know, angry, I mean, yeah, so we got to be careful on both sides. Here's one. It sounds small, but I don't think it is. Discounting fun and relaxation together. Again, I knew a couple that, they did the whole house parenting thing well, but they didn't do anything together. And at some point, Jim and I had to go, what do we like to do together? We had to work through this one, too, and we found out we both like to be outside and garden. Or we used to, when we had more time. But anyway, but sometimes you guys really have to, you got to stop because we get older. I don't like, you know, or like, how about this? When you first date, you went bowling because you acted like you liked it. Like, I hate bowling, you guys. But I'm sure, like, when Jim and I went out, I'll go to your rock concert that I hate and tell you I like it. And then you get married, and who's this person sitting next to me? I don't like that. So sometimes as we get older, we have to find stuff to do together that's fun for both. That can be really challenging. Increasing the time you spend apart, you know, obviously if we spend too much time apart, we're not being intimate with each other. Allowing daily stresses and fatigue to sabotage your intimacy. Yep, we're not. Your calendar can be your best friend sometimes in this kind of thing. Letting your I don't even like that one. I'm not going. Okay, I'll read it. Let your love fizzle instead of sizzle. That's just. All right. Anyway, giving in to predictability. He really likes get a little flair back. Okay. Okay, here's another one. Living in denial, pretending your problems don't exist until you find yourself divorced one day. Forgetting your commitment to each other and failing to resist come-ons and temptations. Failing to, tie yourself to the mast, I guess. Do we have any other thoughts on that? I've got one more thing I'll read, but that's pretty much it. So, yeah, I'll go in.
I feel like Odysseus kind of gave into temptation.
He kind of did.
Because, it's kind of like, hey, I want to look, but I'm going to make sure other people don't let me touch type thing.
Yeah, he kind of did.
Well, but the point of that story was that he goes through so many temptations so he could, that was the point of the deal. He had to live through them. Because the thing with the sirens was if you let go, they will kill you. You don't get what you think you're getting with the sirens. Mm-hmm. So the point of that story was to survive, to hear the song, and survive the passage. Mm-hmm. It's kind of it's not really, like there's actual temptation there. It just sounds like it's there. That's the point of the Odyssey.
Interesting.
Because he had to survive a bunch of them, and you go through them. They're all pretty nasty.
But in another context, you'd be right? Like you're getting a little too close because maybe he turns back around later and goes back.
I want to see how close I can get to the fire.
Yeah, I do see your point though. I do see your point there.
Jody?
Yeah.
When I was in graduate school, we had a guy in our church that talked about the fact that he and his wife made a point of not having any disagreements or fighting in front of the kids. And they said they realized later that their kids didn't have any kind of a role model on how to fight fair and how to resolve conflicts. And they regretted that.
That's interesting. I'm just gonna put this out there, this off the subject a little bit. As far as fighting fair, to me personally, and Jim doesn't do this, so I have other people in my life that do this. No, he fights fair. No, he doesn't do this sin of it. The worst thing you guys can do, especially if you're young and you don't know this yet, the worst thing you can do when you're fighting is use extreme language. You never, you always, because man, when I hear that, we're all like, then your talons come out, so, but we find ourselves, so I'm just going to throw that out there. If you're fighting, don't use the extreme languages. All right, I'm just going to read one more thing, and then you guys we can be done, or not. This is something I found. Okay, I have not read this book, so I am not recommending it. I have no idea if it's a good book. But there was this interesting thing on a book called We Have Met the Enemy. His name is Daniel Akst. I don't know, A-K-S-T, but...
That's the enemy?
No, he's the author of...
Oh.
We Have Met the Enemy. And I have to read this to you. This is just a secular book. about relationships, and this is just a synopsis of it. So I thought this is really interesting because this guy, I mean, I don't know, maybe he's a Christian, but it doesn't come off as a Christian book. It says this book is an intelligent and irreverent investigation into the age-old problem of self-control that we find in the modern world. It says, more calories, more sex, more intoxicants are more readily and privately available than at any time in memory. Pornography and gambling are now instantly and anonymously accessible to anyone with an internet connection. Trying to work? If so, chances are you're struggling to resist the siren call, isn't that funny? The siren call of the internet, to say nothing of the snack machine. As America's bulging waistlines can attest, mealtime is no longer a discrete part of the day, and our struggles with weight have never been more desperate. We have met the enemy, the book examines overeating, overspending, procrastination, wayward sexual attraction, and other everyday transgressions that bedevil modern society. While temptations have multiplied, many of the long-standing social constraints on behavior have eroded. That's important. I think this is really true, and I think our schools are teaching it really well. There don't seem to be any social constraints, especially at the college level. There's no discretion. You don't need it. That's stupid. That's old-fashioned. That one kills me. So it says, so basically these social constraints of behavior have eroded. Tradition, ideology, and religion have lost their grip on many of us. While commonly accepted standards of attire, speech, and comportment in the public sphere have largely dissolved, at this point I kind of want to tell Daryl's story. Maybe I shouldn't. Anyway, okay. At that point I want to kind of tell Daryl's story. Ask me later about this, what we can wear in the public sphere. Financial constraints, once a ready substitute for willpower, so in other words, we used to have financial constraints and we couldn't do everything we wanted. We didn't have the money. But now it's saying now we're swept away by surging affluence and the remarkable open-handedness of lenders. We all know what happened there. A remarkable confluence of, in the United States of America, a remarkable confluence coming together of freedom, affluence, and technology are sorely testing the limits of our human willpower. This conundrum of self-control has occupied thinkers since the time of Socrates. Philosophers, theologians, psychologists, and lately economists have wrestled with the question of how is it possible for us to act against our own best interests, but the issue has never been more urgent than it is today. For affluent societies, the struggle for self-mastery is the preeminent challenge of our times. In essence, willpower is the ballgame. If our humanity hinges on anything, and this is the last line in this little synopsis, if our humanity hinges on anything, it's our ability as individuals to guide our behavior according to our own judgment of what is best. But a Christian would say, according to our judgment as is best to God, right? But I thought that was a really interesting secular take on kind of what we're talking about today. Go ahead. It's coming.
So I'm not
No, go ahead. You can. I know. Go ahead. Say whatever.
I think I'm not a behavioralist. Let me just say, I don't think you can just say it's as simple as willpower.
No, I'm sure not. Yeah.
And
Especially a Christian wins.
we're complex.
Yeah.
And when someone takes an exit out of a relationship, it's out of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're going to understand, what was it that you couldn't tell your spouse, right? What could you not tell them that you were so needing that you couldn't tell them, and it was safer to tell them?
Mm.
It was safer to get that need met over there instead of come to your spouse. What was it? I think that's a more appropriate approach than just saying, couldn't you just hunker down and behave it better?
Yeah, right. That's a great
I have so much anxiety in my body right now because I think that's not how we do it. That's not how we get to it, and that's not how we avoid it. We say
just saying have more, just be stronger.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point.
We say what can, and then on the other side of it is it's so vital that we keep telling our partners. Mm-hmm. Here, I need a hug. I need time with you. I need space. I need alone time a bit. What is my need? I need to let you know what my need is. So I keep coming to you for my need, and I don't take an exit. fast forward over time, I don't end up taking an exit over here.
No, that's a great point. And I guess for me, as far as self-control, I'm always thinking of it in my daily little things, like my self-control of my tongue with Jim. You know what I mean? So in that sense, for me, I'm kind of bringing it to the really micro level, because I feel like every little decision will bring us closer or, you know, bring us apart. So yeah, sorry, I don't think yeah, you're right. You can't just live a terrible marriage and then say have control and stay together. That's not really what we're aiming for.
But I do think it's good to talk about, so from the wider perspective instead of the narrow perspective. From this perspective, it's really almost not understandable when you have a person that doesn't have the money, but then you talk to them, it's like, well, I've gambled away $177,000. You're not talking 2, 3, 400, 2,000.
Yeah.
177. How does that happen at some point? You know, like, or another person where they'll sit there and they'll cry, telling you that they had been clean from heroin for 3 months and they blew it over the weekend.
Yeah.
They did it again, and like they just have no. You know, it's hard. It's really hard. It's just that. So, gosh, there's impulse control problems, however you want to say it. I mean, so behaviorally, you can look at things and it helps you to see the scope of the problem. It may not be the way you fix it, but it's really good to understand the scope.
Yeah, I
the
like that.
factors that are.
And we're very complicated, like Lee said. I really appreciate that about human beings.
Yeah.
And our relationships are very complicated.
Very.
Yeah.
I feel sometimes it's easier to look back and maybe not look back, but like from say, you know, your perspective or maybe my perspective, like, why on earth would you do that? Well, you've never gone through that, so how can you sit there and
Walk a mile in my shoes kind of thing,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, nobody sets out to be an addict. And, oh, when I grow
Right.
up, I'm gonna be
Right.
this. It sneaks up on you,
Yep.
and then your brain's screaming at you. So it's really hard not
That's
to
what
do
addiction
it.
is. It's almost, it really overpowers you in ways.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody says, oh, I'm gonna do this. One day you're like, oh, how'd that happen? Although I still don't get, like, heroin. Like, you know that you could be addicted first time. That's not that you can, but.
Yeah.
But then you can't just say, oh, just stop, because your brain and your body is screaming at you, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's the introduction of one of Dallas Willard's books, talks about a student that went to the president of Harvard University, and virtually all of the Ivy League schools started off as schools of theology to train ministers and so forth. And this person came and said, okay, I've had all the classes, I'm about to graduate, I've had classes in ethics and so forth, but I've never had any kind of a class that taught me how to be a good person.
Yeah.
And, you know, where you said that you have a problem with our colleges, you know, the big thing is we're open-minded, so the thing you hear an awful lot out is there is no absolute truth. And that's what our kids are being taught today.
Yeah,
You make
that's
your own decision on what's right for
postmodernism,
you,
yeah.
instead of saying, you know, God has the absolute truth, and you know, a relationship with God is how you learn to be a good person.
Yeah. There's no absolute truth is the honey. Because when there's no absolute truth, I can do anything I want. And that's the thing that leads to death. Because we all know that is not going to lead anywhere good.
And you sound so open-minded when you can say
Oh,
that.
I know. And yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say, one thing about this particular, these types of proverbs is to remember the genre they're in, and that it's a father warning a son. So they can be extremely discouraging because it sounds like I'll give you for instance. So when Jonathan was a little boy, and he took something that wasn't his, right? There's a tendency, maybe this is not greatest parenting skills I'm showing here, but, you know, say, we do not steal. If you steal, you're gonna end up in prison. You are gonna be a prisoner because you're stealing, right? He took something of mine that he wanted to play with, right? It wasn't okay. So, I'm giving him the full spectrum, right? So if you steal, going on in life, you get caught, you're gonna go to prison, it's gonna ruin your life. Well, probably taking my candy didn't, right?
Didn't.
So in this sense, like, so in a now a different sense, so if I tell you, okay, heroin will give you a really, really good high. I mean, you're gonna feel like, it's gonna feel so great, you will never have experienced anything like this. But if you do it, it will kill you. It's gonna kill you. It may not be the right way, but it will kill you, okay? So it's a path to destruction. So that's what this father is doing with his son, with the sexual thing, right? This path will kill you. Well, if you've tried heroin and you've gone down that path, then you're realizing this is destroying my life. It has a propensity to destroy my life, all my relationships, and you stop and you come back. This proverb and many times things in the Bible, they can feel defeating if it's already happened to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you feel like, well, it's too late for me. I'm already destroyed. But the good news is that's not the case. You
Right.
can always turn around and go
Right.
back.
Right.
You can, and then it's not a destructive kind of thing. It's a, yeah, it hurts.
There's forgiveness and grace.
You know, but
Yeah.
there is forgiveness, and there is, I can live differently. I can live, I can choose to live in the power of the Holy Spirit. I can choose to a different path, you know, and that's always available.
Yep. Yep. All right. Anything else? Kathy, would you like to close us?
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time that we've been able to sit among each other and sit among your presence. We thank you for each and every person that is here. We thank you for your love. We thank you for the lessons that Jody has brought to us this morning, Lord. And we pray that each one of us will take what we have heard and be able to apply it not only in our own lives, but to share it with those who are close to us and who we love. And we just thank you for Rob and Lee and the boys for sharing their home today with us. And we just pray that you'll be with each one of us as we go about our week. In your precious name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.